This whole conversation on the dangers of the abortion drug mifepristone and what it poses to unborn babies and the mothers, as well as what the FDA can do about it, is one of those attorney generals that Dr. New just talked about. This Kansas Attorney General Kris Kobach joins us now. Attorney General, welcome to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Great to be with you.
Okay, you were one of the 22, I believe it was, other state attorney generals who signed on to a letter calling on HHS Secretary Kennedy to and the FDA commissioner to bring back some of the safeguards that the abortion drugs need and that once had, but that were scrapped during the Obama and Biden administrations. What were some of those safeguards that were removed that you and the others are calling on to be reinstated?
Well, one of the most important ones is that it be administered in the presence of a doctor because of the medical complications that subsequent studies have revealed. One of the things that the FDA is supposed to do, and usually does, is looks at all of the available evidence, all of the indications of side effects and medical emergencies or adverse conditions that occur after the pill or the medicine or whatever it is they're studying, whatever after that treatment occur. And when they okayed proceeding without these safeguards, they did so with a fairly minimal amount of information, or at least a fairly early snapshot of information. Well, now we have a wealth of information that has come to light, showing that there are, in fact, significant adverse events that occur when this mifepristone, this abortion pill, is taken. So we're simply asking the FDA to take a second look. Look at that. We have a lot of additional information, and the idea that the FDA would refuse to do so. No, they haven't refused. This is our request to them. But I think, it would behoove everyone on all sides of this issue to say, wait a minute, there's a lot of information that's come out indicating that the chances of an adverse event are much higher than the label indicates and much higher than the information that the FDA had at the time was. The information they had is very different from the information we have now.
So what are some of these adverse consequences? Why are the safeguards so necessary? It should be probably obvious, should be something that we don't have to discuss. We have discussed it a lot on this program, but hit some of that for us. What are some of the adverse effects?
Well, let me just read from the letter, which, these are ones we footnoted heavily in the letter. Sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, the necessity of surgical procedures after a failed abortion, and other complications. So this is just a partial list of what we have seen. And there's a major study that was done between 2017 and 2023 by the known as the EPPC study, and it looked it's an all-payer insurance claims database, which included over 865,000 mifepristone abortions. So this is the largest known study ever of the abortion pill and what has happened when women take the abortion pill. And so this isn't a study of, just selecting 500 cases or 200 cases. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of cases and adverse events that occurred after the pill was taken. And the numbers are really shocking. And it showed that the amount, the incidence, the number of adverse events was 28 times higher than the data the FDA had at the time when it said it was okay to go ahead and have this pill available without these precautions. And so I think that's the point here. We now have a lot of data that the FDA didn't have at the time. And all we're asking is for the FDA to take a second look with all of this new data. And this data is, again, not some study by some individual who might have an axe to grind, an individual who could be accused of being biased one way or the other. This is data from the actual administration of the pill in over 800,000 cases. And the data shows that
that's a huge state. So this is not, as many try to convince us, this is not a drug like taking a Tylenol. I mean, this has major effects. So let me ask you this. In addition to restoring some of the safeguards for abortion drugs, do you think the FDA should actually re-examine and perhaps even revoke the approval of mifepristone? With these type of adverse consequences that you're talking about, should the whole thing be reconsidered?
Well, I think the FDA should take a fresh look at everything, a fresh look at the safety of the drugs, and then secondly, at if the drug is to be allowed and is to remain in use, which it is now and has been for years, then what are the safety protocols that need to be accompany its use? Because right now, women are getting this thing without, and they're administering it to themselves without any doctor present and suffering significant medical complications. So let's have the FDA take a look at in its entirety. But we are saying in our letter, at a minimum, take a look at these safety protocols. And the FDA should, just use the study and do what the FDA does and is supposed to do best and make an assessment. Is this safe to have at all? And then secondly, if it is safe enough to have, then what are the conditions, what are the circumstances under which a woman could take the mifepristone? And I think this is a reasonable request that people should agree on all sides of this issue should agree. Let's make sure that this thing is safe if it is going to be on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think that people would agree. You have a drug as dangerous as this with the adverse consequences as this, you would think it would be common sense. But unfortunately, that's not always present. I want to just say thank you so much, Kansas Attorney General Kris Kobach, for joining us today. Thank you for standing in the gap for life and for women and for taking a stand with this. We appreciate you joining us on Washington Watch. God bless you.